Thank you so much, Roberta.
Yeah.
Good evening. This is the July 24th meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the Somerville Community Preservation Committee will be conducted by remote participation. We will have a video recording available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. Roberta, would you mind calling roll, please?
Sure. Laura,
I'm present.
Ryan,
Present.
Joe,
Present.
John,
Present.
Eric,
Here, present.
Jahan.
Present.
So that makes, how many of you is that? 6 of you. And we're missing David and we're missing Heather. I know that we expect Heather not to be here today, but we'll see if David turns up. As I'm looking at the agenda, I realized that I forgot to put on the agenda to adopt the meeting minutes from last month. So I don't know if you want to do that anyway, if we want to just hold on until next month when we'll make sure that we put it on.
Sure. I mean, Roberta, as long as it's permissible for us to adopt the meeting minutes, I would like to move forward with that. I hope everyone in the committee had the chance to read the meeting minutes, and whether there are any edits or comments, would you please share them right now?
I read through them and thought they were fine. So,
Great. Thank you, Laura. I'm not seeing any comments or requests for edits, so if someone could please make a motion to adopt the meeting minutes.
sure, I'll do that. Make a motion to adopt them as is.
And I can
Thank you,
second
Laura.
that.
Thanks, John.
All right.
Roberta, would you please call roll?
Sure. Ryan,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes,
and Jahan.
Yes.
And I just realized that I do not have, I did not give our guest today the correct link to get in. So I'm going to take a moment to find, so he wasn't able to follow the links. So I don't know, perhaps we can just pause for a moment while I send him an email with the correct link for this.
sure.
Sure.
Everybody surviving the red line shutdown, okay?
Another red line shutdown?
Yeah, yeah,
No.
2 weeks almost until
wow.
through Sunday.
Uh,
I noticed driving, I had to drive up to Porter Square today to get something, and there were just a fleet of the buses that they run for it, which was bad on the streets, bad for everybody.
We Orange Line commuters are actually doing okay for once. After this last shutdown, a bunch of the slow zones were eliminated. So I feel like
Nice.
we're flying for once.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, hopefully the same will be true for us after the 29th.
Yep. fingers crossed.
That would be nice. I've been biking. I hate those shuttle buses. They're so slow.
They really are.
Yeah.
Roberta, I don't know if you saw Sean's message, but
yes,
they've made it into the meeting.
they did.
Yes.
Okay. I am coming back over to Zoom now. I just left Zoom to go look for them. Promote to panelist.
Great. Roberta, I just want to mention, David, welcome. I just want to make sure that for the record, we want to also include David in as a participant for this meeting as well.
Thank you.
Sure, welcome.
You can only
John,
give me partial credit.
Mostly 99%. Sean, my apologies for not getting the panelist link to you. I'm glad you found your way in.
No, don't worry. I apologize for the email that I just sent you in the voicemail.
I may never get the voicemail. I need to remove that from my SIG because the room where the phone is that has that that extension goes to is locked and off limits at the moment.
No
So
problem. No problem.
but
Great.
thank you, welcome, and thank you for joining us this evening. Sean Willett is here to talk with us about the Somerville Hispanic Association project and their request for a contract extension.
So, Sean, thank you so much for joining this evening's CPC meeting. We'd love to hear your update, and also if you have some time, some of the committee members may have questions once you've completed your presentation. So please go right ahead.
By all means,
Thank
thanks
you.
for having me, folks. I don't have a formal script or formal presentation. I just kind of want to walk you guys through where we've been. I'm sure some of you have heard some of the ongoing story. I can imagine that the Somerville Hispanic Church has become kind of a story in Somerville about when is this project going to happen? How many projects are going on and how much money have we put into the building? There's a lot of questions going on there. And I think if I were to kind of give the Spark Notes version of it, is what started off as originally a fiscal year 20 project, which I believe was a roofing project under John Hecker, who is an architect in our firm. I'm with Spencer Preservation Group, has kind of slowly evolved into a larger and larger project with multiple grants all feeding in. And the initial plan, as John had planned it, was to hire separate general contractors to take care of each of the grant scopes. And that made sense, especially when they were smaller scopes. And especially given how, how modest the fiscal year 21 scope is with repointing and some general masonry work. It's only about $49,000, if I recall correctly. So it's not large. But with the fiscal year 22 grant and the fiscal year 23 grant, and now the ARPA grant, which has its own set of challenges, we started to find, and John retired, and I have inherited this project, which has been a wonderful and welcomed challenge in its own right. I realized very quickly that it would be too difficult and it would create conflicts if we had multiple general contractors all work on the same building and the same site kind of on top of each other. Very difficult to figure out where liability is, who's in charge of what. Things can get messy real fast. So after working with the general contractors that were originally going to start working on this project for fiscal year 21, 2, 3, and the ARPA projects, which included accessibility work with landscaping work on the outside, elevator work on the inside, accessibility work on the inside, it became very clear that the right choice was to try to consolidate all of these different scopes of work, which appeared to be separate projects, into a single general contract with a single general contractor. And that took a while to do, to be honest. It took some selling, it took some conversations, some tough conversations with different contractors that had anticipated doing this work, but we were able to come up with an amicable solution with contractors subbing to other contractors. And we are now at a state where we have a single general contractor, ZVI Construction, who's well qualified for this work. Our firm has a long history with them, and we've done great work with them, both preservation and new construction, into a single general contract under what we call a cost plus fee type of contract, to allow us to proceed and move forward without necessarily having every single scope of work permitted separately. Everything kind of gets wrapped up into a single. Now that adds a little bit of administrative challenge for me, which, I'm up to the challenge. I got to make sure that we keep our money separate. So that way, even though it's a single project with a single general contractor, we have different buckets that money is feeding into. So that's a challenge for me, not so much the general contractor, but we're working on it, and it's actually going fairly well. To speak to the particular project, we now have our general contractor under contract. They're on site. They're conducting exploratory work for what we're considering the highest priority work. Not that the fiscal year 21 repointing project is not a high priority because it's the longest standing grant, but we have an elevator project going in right now being funded by ARPA. ARPA has a very fast approaching deadline, as everyone I'm sure is aware in Somerville. We have an extension till the 30th. The contractor is on site. They're starting exploratory work, and we're going to be spending down that ARPA money very soon in order to get them cleared, basically get the runway set for them to bring in the elevator, start the accessibility work. And they will be conducting the repointing work as part of the CPA fiscal year 21 as part of this overall scope of work. I don't have a particular date as to when they will be doing the repointing. That's going to be a sequencing question for them. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for them to stage the outside of the building to do the repointing work if they're going to be bringing in equipment through the staging to get the elevator equipment and all the materials in. They could be doing it in the middle. They could do it after the elevator is complete. But we're making good progress. We have the general contractor under contract. They're on board. They're started exploratory work. They're on site. Their crew is there, and I feel very good about where we're going. I'm looking forward to having some specific dates in the schedule to share. I apologize, I don't have that at the moment. But let me stop there. I've given you guys kind of a general overview. In summary, the fiscal year 21 is kind of one part of a multi-phased project under one general contract, and I'm very hopeful. We've got a good general contractor. And this is honestly the best way forward, to have a single general contract instead of several subcontracts.
Great. Thank you so much, Sean. Really appreciate the insight and the background information. So I wanted to see if my fellow committee members have any questions, any items to bring up to Sean while he's here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just the remaining almost 20,000, right? 19,800. I'm
That's
just
right.
looking at the spreadsheet, and so
That's right.
you just want the permission to extend the grant term beyond September so that you can spend it in a time frame that works for your project.
That's
right?
That's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. Just making sure I got it. I got the nuts and
No, I
bolts.
appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Laura. Any other questions, comments?
I'll just make a comment and a question if I may, but did you have, I'll wait until the committee members have asked their questions. Is there anyone else?
So I do have a quick question for Sean. So I understand the approach with a single contractor. You know, I guess what I'm thinking about is, in terms of the project timeline, do you foresee any challenges, delays, any unforeseen circumstances at this juncture that may cause the work, the work completion to be delayed, whether it's a short period of time or longer? If you could talk a little bit about that, that would be really helpful.
That's an excellent question. I think we're past the largest roadblock. The largest roadblock was really having kind of a disparate contract with different contractors, all kind of figuring out who's going to come in first, who's going to come in second, making sure they're not stepping on anybody. We're past that roadblock. We have a general contractor under contract. They understand the scope. They've joked with me and said, we can get this done in a week if we really needed to. But that would be in an isolated world if it wasn't part of a larger project, if we didn't have an elevator coming in or excavation or landscape work. So I don't see any roadblocks. I will 100% share a timeline or a schedule with the CPA committee when I do have that. Again, we're in the early stages of getting the contractor under contract, so I don't have the formal paperwork, but I will share that with you as soon as I know, because I want everyone to feel comfortable about where we're going with this. It's a small amount of money, but it's not insignificant.
Sure. We appreciate that. Thank you so much, Sean.
So, hi, I have a quick question.
David, please.
So just as a quick clarification, are you asking for an extension now, or is this kind of a heads up that an extension request is coming.
This is an extension request now.
So it's an extension from when to when exactly?
That was going to be one of my comments.
Okay.
So what's needed is, so their contract for the FY21 grant ends in September, and the city's process is somewhat lengthy for obtaining a contract extension, but it can be retroactive. So if the contract expires, but the contract extension is executed a few months later, the work can still be completed as long as it's completed before the end of the extended contract. So you would be looking for a contract extension of 3 years. And so what we're here to ask for the committee for this evening is a contract extension for another 3 years for this project.
Is that all the increments? It's just 333?
3-year increments.
Okay.
And
Unofficially, I can say it will not take 3 years to do
I've
the
heard
20.
that before,
20
and it did
true,
take 3
true.
years. So
True,
I
Roberta.
will-
True, Roberta. I should be careful with what I say.
So I think we should just always use the maximum increment as a standard, so that we don't end up having to eat our words later.
Yep. My joke is if I'm back in 3 years for another extension, it means I've had 2 years of bigger problems.
Right, because it looks like from your cover letter that you think, if I'm reading it right, that you think you'll be done spring of 2025?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the overall project will basically need to be done by then. And so this portion of the project necessarily falls in line with the other.
Got it. Any other questions from committee members? Seeing none. So Roberta, should we
I just had a
take
couple
vote?
of questions myself, and then
Please. I'm
yes,
sorry.
we'll
Please
take
go
a
ahead.
motion. Yeah. So
Please go
two
ahead.
questions. The first is if there's an update on obtaining building permits for the project. Has that been submitted?
We have not submitted it yet. I'm pushing very, very hard to get the contractor to start that process. Trust me, I'm up at night every night thinking about it because I
Okay.
understand how long it takes. And I'm working hard with them and the owners to make sure that we're spending down some of the money, even though we understand, not the CPA money, but the
ARPA funds.
the ARPA
yeah.
funds, which is really the elephant in the room here, while waiting for the permit, because we can still place deposits for, elevators and materials, even if we don't have a formal permit. We're working on that. I'm pushing them very, very hard, and I think that'll be happening very soon. But
Okay.
nobody's more aware of how important that is than I. So I understand and appreciate the question.
Yeah. And the other question that I had is more of a larger philosophical question, just to clarify why the CPA is funding an elevator installation. So it's my understanding, and you're the architect, that there's a limit to how much investment we can put into the roofs and the windows and the masonry restoration before it triggers a requirement for the building to be made handicap accessible.
That's right. Generally there are certain aspects, and I'll keep this relatively brief, but I enjoy kind of talking people through this because it's very important to know with architecture and public construction projects, and even private ones like this. There are certain scopes of work that don't trigger certain amounts to be spent before an entire building needs to become accessible. Certain maintenance items, like some roofing work, some masonry repointing work, small restoration work, doesn't necessarily contribute to that, but a lot does. And once the value of the work being done to the building exceeds, let's say, about 30% of the fair and cash value of the building itself, you trigger the 521 CMR accessibility codes for the entire building, and then the entire building needs to be brought up to accessible standards, which is important, and we should be doing that anyways. But as you can see, part of the complexity is as these projects start, and let me say this too, it's not a single project, it's within a span of a certain number of years. So you can't get around this by doing smaller projects back to back to back to back. They start to accumulate and build up. So at a certain point, when you start awarding more grants or receiving a client is or an owner is receiving more grants over a certain period of time, once that threshold is hit, you suddenly, sometimes without even realizing it, you suddenly hit that 30% threshold. And that is kind of one of the things that's happened here. We funded a number of restoration projects and a number of improvement projects at this building that we very quickly approached that 30% threshold, which brought us to where we are, needing an ARPA grant and the CPA fiscal year, I believe 22 grant for the elevator and accessibility portion. So that's kind of the story here. We do our best to improve these buildings and take care of them and restore them sensitively, but we also have to be mindful of the accessibility requirements as we want to be too.
Thank you.
I have a hypothetical question for you. Is that 30% of the value at the beginning or the end of that 5-year period?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think it's the beginning. I'll have to look into that, because if it's a capital improvement, that would theoretically raise the assessed value of it. I would say it's probably the assessed value at the start, because theoretically, I enjoy the philosophy to go in line with that. Theoretically, you could just keep pushing it down the line. If you said your improvements increase the assessed value of the building by X number of dollars, you could theoretically push that goalpost back and back and back. So I would say, just kind of a gut answer, it's the beginning of that period.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, in that case, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the extension for Somerville Hispanic Association?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Eric. Is there a second?
Sure, a second.
Go ahead, Laura, you got it.
Mhm.
All right,
Roberta, would you
I'll
please
call the
call?
roll.
Thank
Yep.
you.
John,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes,
and Jahan.
Yes.
All in favor. So the extension is granted. Thank you very much for being with us this evening, Sean.
I appreciate you guys having me. This is not an easy project. I know you guys recognize this. This is a career defining project for me. It's a lot, but we're on our way, and it's going to be a real success, and it's really going to be benefiting a community that deserves it, and services for our community that deserve it. So I appreciate your time.
And I do, and
Thank
I also
you.
want to add that I appreciate that you brought it all under one contract. I think that's really
Yeah, it
great, because
is.
it was a lot of stuff, you know.
Yeah, it was. This is the right way to go. The right way to go. It didn't eliminate the problems, but it cleared us a path to move forward.
And I just want to add one more thing before you go that I think is
please.
one of the most exciting things about this project is that within the last couple of months, the Somerville Hispanic Association has found a new tenant for their second floor, which is going to be the Elizabeth Peabody House,
Yes.
expanding their childcare to create a new toddler age all full day daycare at their site. So it's really an exciting opportunity to meet even more of Somerville's deep community
That's right.
needs.
That's right. I've been in touch with Matt considerably, and he's a really, really great guy. He's really worked very hard for that program, and yeah, I'm proud to be a part of this to help them.
That's wonderful news. Sean, we wish you all the best, and and
I'll
thank
need
you
it. I'll need it. Keep me in your thoughts, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming out this
Thank you.
evening. Thanks. Take care.
Bye, folks.
Thank you. So it looks like we have 4 other items on the agenda. I think we could take them in order, Roberta. So would you mind introducing the review EDFs and intent form submissions?
Sure, I am quickly opening the folder in the meeting packet that has the EDFs. So I'm not going to go through all of the EDFs with you this evening. A couple years ago, the committee elected to delegate to me the review of the EDFs so that we don't need to take a vote on these this evening. I can determine the eligibility myself and communicate with all of the applicants directly. But I do want to go through with you all of the EDFs that were received. And so I am going to share my screen in just a moment. So, okay, you should be seeing the financial worksheet right now. And so the total estimated requests, now the estimated requests are just a ballpark, and any of the applicants may elect not to proceed with the full application, or they may end up with a final scope and budget that exceed or are less than the amount that's estimated. But the total EDFs that were submitted estimate $2,150,000 of request for historic preservation and open space projects. And one project that is not on the list that I do need to look into putting back on the list is the Somerville Museum, which we partially funded last year with a promise that we would consider the balance of their project in the next funding round. So I've got to connect with them to see if they'd like to proceed with that. And if so, also add what, if I recall offhand, would probably be in the order of maybe between 50,000 and 70,000 of additional request for the elements that weren't funded last year. So this compares with a total available funding of 1,425,000. So we're looking at a competitive funding round for this year for these projects. So that is something that I will be sure to communicate with all of the applicants, because I think it will be important for them to understand before they commit to completing a full application what the criteria are and what the odds are that they're going to be successful in obtaining their full request. Invite them to identify a smaller request if it's possible for them to break their project into smaller amounts, which is what we've been successful in doing, to be able to spread the projects, the funding over all of the projects in prior years. So I did give just a general summary of what I thought the eligibility would be for each of these projects. I'm going to probably not leave this in the final version of this report, but this was just my initial thoughts of what the eligibility would be for each of the projects. So the Somerville Community Land Trust is eligible, and I will make sure that it's clear to them that they need to apply directly to the Somerville, to the Affordable Housing Trust for the affordable housing portion of their project. So there are 2 residential condominiums in historic buildings. One is a former police station, the 50 Bow Street project, and the other is a former church, which is the 1 Summer Street Condo Trust. And both of these buildings are looking for funds for restoration of exterior elements of the building. The 1 Summer Street Condo Trust actually is also looking for accessibility to their ground floor, where they have a space that has been offered for community use in the past and could be again offered for community use if it was in accessible and safe condition. And the St. James Episcopal Church is located in Teal Square, and they're looking this year for just an eligibility study. And what they're looking specifically for is not an eligibility study, a feasibility study for interior improvements that would make their community spaces safe and accessible. It's similar to a study which was funded, actually two studies which Community Preservation Act has funded for the Elizabeth Peabody House in the past. One was a general feasibility study for the building, and the second was a specific engineering study for their second floor space. So this is a similar request. The Elizabeth Peabody House is looking for an additional tranche of funds for renovations to their exterior. The Department of Veterans Services is looking for funds for restoration of the Somerville Veterans Cemetery, which is located behind the Clarendon Hill development site. And that would require, that is not currently listed anywhere as a historic site. So that would require a determination by the HPC that the cemetery is significant to Somerville's history.
Roberta?
Yes.
Sorry, Laura, did you have a question as well?
No.
Okay, just a quick question with respect to the HPC determination. Do you have a sense of the time frame? Because obviously the initial interest has been signaled by the applicant, and I'm just trying to understand the timing.
Yes. So the designation needs to be made before you vote on the funding for the project. It is submission of a full application is at the applicant's risk if they don't already know that it is an eligible site. So for all of the historic preservation projects, I am going to make sure that they have given me, in fact, I created a new form this year for historic preservation applicants to submit a form that requests being placed on an HPC agenda. So it indicates what it is that they're asking the HPC for, which will hopefully streamline and clarify the process of getting the reviews that we need historic projects to get from HPC. So I'm going to ask for all of these historic preservation applicants to submit their request to be on the HPC as soon as possible so that they can get them, they can meet with HPC within the next couple of months rather than waiting until the 11th hour, which is what has happened in the last couple of years.
Thank you so much, Roberta. That clarification is very helpful.
And then 3 projects were submitted by PSEF for Quincy Street open space renovation, water fountain at Nunziato Field, and a contribution to the Open Space Acquisition Fund.
The question on the Pleasant Ave one is, did you say that that was going to get switched instead to affordable housing category, or is that entirely a historic preservation request there, the $500,000?
I think so. When I read the eligibility determination form, it appeared to me that they are looking at that as the total ask for both historic preservation and affordable housing. So I'm going to ask them to split the scope and submit to us a request just for the historic preservation portion of that project.
Okay. Thank you.
This may be just the historic preservation portion of the project. I don't know. So I'd like them to clarify that. They may have already asked separately to the Affordable Housing Trust.
And this is all related to converting this to affordable housing.
So 12 Pleasant Ave, my understanding, I'm speaking from memory because I haven't looked at it today, is I think a 6-family building, a 6-unit building that's already occupied by residents, already a residential building that Somerville Community Land Trust recently acquired. And it's a historic building, local historic district already, and it's in need of structural repair and historic preservation on the exterior, as well as making the units permanently affordable.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Eric. Are there any other questions that the committee members have for Roberta? Any clarifying items?
Is there any question about the water fountain being eligible? I mean, obviously open space and recreation, is that kind of wide open then about what improvements they're doing and they're all eligible?
I didn't see any concern about the eligibility of any of these
Okay.
improvements.
As that's my local field, what are they planning to do? It's like a drinking fountain
Looks
or
like a bubbler.
Yeah, we're looking to install 2 new water fountains. With the roadway projects and all the utility work, we were able to work with them to stub in 2 new water lines into the park. So we're looking to add water fountains to the field area and to the dog park.
okay.
I have a question, and it's about the numbers. The available is 1.4 million and change. And I'm just, I want to know why that is so much less than the number we always give. We get this much, we get 3.2, we get this much CPA money and the match. And so I know there's a really good explanation, and you're going to know it, Roberta, and that's why I'm asking you.
1.4 is just the open space and historic preservation share of the 3
Oh, okay.
million. So that's for starters. Secondly, there is this already takes out the debt service
Okay.
for the historic preservation portion.
Thank you.
And in fact, on this spreadsheet, we have the FY25 budget, which shows how we arrived at the numbers. So 3.4 was the total budget. So out of the total budget, we took out the 5% for administrating and operating costs and 700,000 for the debt service. And that leaves 2.5 million for available projects, of which the 1.4 million was for those 2 program areas and the
Okay.
budgeted reserve combined. And what this does not have yet, which I will estimate before you make your final decision in the fall. The fall report I'll go through the exercise of adding up any additional carried over reserves. So I believe that the one large project that we're anticipating returning is the 35 Richardson site that was supposed to be an open space acquisition project, which was canceled last year. And unless we return those funds before the last round, I think we did not. I think that those funds are going to be coming back this funding round. So that will be reflected in the fall.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. Are there any other questions or items for consideration here? Seeing none. So Roberta, in this case, this was more informational for us and for our consideration. One item I do want to mention is that, and this could be for the future, this will certainly be for the future. It's going to be helpful when we get into the presentation stage to understand whether some of these applicants are receiving funding or potential funding from other sources, just so we could keep that under consideration as we're looking to award, particularly if it's going to be a competitive round, assuming that it will be. So there might be a special consideration for that, so that way we understand what sources alternate source of funding might be available, or in other instances, what might be with the CPA funds helpful for their other applications as well. I think that's going to be another consideration to keep in mind.
Thank you. I will keep that in mind.
Great. Thank you so much, Roberta. So I think we could move on to the next item on the agenda, which is select member of candidate search committee. I know that this topic was introduced at previous CPC meetings. Roberta, please see whether we can make the selection this evening.
Sure, thank you. So the plan for recruiting a new candidate, as I explained at the previous meeting, entails putting together a candidate selection committee or candidate review committee that includes representatives from each of the 3 program areas, as well as a representative from from this committee. So I wanted to give you all some time to think about it and would like to see if someone from the committee will volunteer to serve on the review committee for our selection.
Roberta, this isn't something where I can double dip because I'm already acting as.
I would say
reviewer.
as a last resort, you could. John is going to be one of our members. He's going to be representing the open space program area, and also serves as a member of the committee. But I would love to extend the invitation for another member of the committee to also join.
So just as a reminder, so you're looking for members from each of the, like the Conservation Commission would have a member, but ideally not me? Is that?
So each of the 3 program areas has a representative. And when I reached out to staff who work with each of the 3 program areas to ask for recommendations, it could be committee members. It could be, you know, any stakeholders who they work with. But each of the staff who I reached out to elected themselves to serve as the representatives. So the representatives that we have for each of the 3 program areas include John for open space and recreation, and Sarah White for historic preservation, and Paul Goldstein for affordable housing. So we do have 3 staff people, and I think it would be welcoming if the committee also included a civilian.
So that'd be, so you mean one of the members of the public at large seats? Yeah.
Not necessarily the at-large seats. I just need to have a member who's, or not need to, I would love to see a member who's not a city staff person.
Oh, okay.
So we did get an communication from Heather, who was not able to be here with us this evening, saying that she would be willing to trade the role of review committee member for outreach committee member. So if no one else from the committee would step in to fulfill this role, she would be willing to do that.
Do you have a sense of the commitment or the number of meetings that you're anticipating?
I will bring up the plan.
Yeah, I was gonna say that plan you shared with me was very helpful.
Yeah. All right, and then I'm going to share the screen so we can look at the plan together. All right. So the for the what I anticipate, I think I review committee tasks. So we'll schedule a meeting to review the plan and scope. So I think that we won't actually do that because that would be next week. And I don't think that I think that I will be coordinating with other city staff to review the plan and scope. So giving feedback to the CPA manager to identify candidates to interview. So I will share all of the resumes with members of the review committee, and we could either meet in person or you could just give me feedback verbally or via email on who, depending on how many applications we receive, what your feedback would be about who to select to have interviews with. So I'm saying to interview each of the candidates, assuming that that would be a small number of candidates. If it's a large number of people apply for the position, then we would narrow it down to a limited number for each of the open seats. So the target dates for the interviews are sometime during the month of September. And we would be scheduling probably between, I'd say, 2 to 5 interviews with candidates. And these are all most likely, I think, going to happen during the workday because we're mostly staff interviewing volunteer candidates. So we'll do it at a time that everyone is able to be available. And then we may be able to select the final candidate in a meeting following the last interview. But if we need to hold a separate meeting, we would expect that to be the last week of September, first week of October, to have a final meeting to select a candidate.
This is
that's
to
helpful.
select a member of this committee who's not appointed by one of these categories, right?
So we're looking to select a member of this committee who's not a city staff person. Because
mean,
the other 4 members of the committee right now are all city staff people.
Okay, but I mean, the ultimate goal is to find a new member for this commission, for the,
Yes, a new general public, actually 2 new general public members are the seats to be filled through this process.
okay. I didn't realize, because I got sort of conscripted by my commission to be here. I didn't realize that others had to go through the interview process.
Right. Yeah, the commission seats are filled by those commissions. You know, they get to select who goes on it. So that's not a public process.
I see.
So if there's not a volunteer among all of you, I can reach out to Heather and let her know that we would like to take her up on her offer to switch from the outreach subcommittee to the candidate review committee.
The dates, so I might be able to do it, but it looks like most of the work is in September then? The time
Yes.
work? I could probably do that. I'm dead in August and what's left of this month, but September I could participate in that.
Okay. There is a possibility that we end up having to delay the start of the schedule. I'm negotiating with the other departments about the communication strategy for putting out the committee announcement. So I'm pushing to be able to stick with our schedule, but there's a possibility that they'll prevail and we have to push it back a month.
Okay. And
Well-
the time commitment is mostly weekday. It's not like evening stuff. looks like.
Right.
Okay, that actually works better for me anyway. I'm
Okay.
already doing 3 other meetings in a month for, yeah. Okay,
Great. Thank you so much for volunteering, Eric. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great.
Go ahead.
So Roberta, I think we can move on to the next item, which is the CPA surcharge increase.
Okay, so the CPA, I had contacted each of you individually to talk about the CPA surcharge increase. And so a proposal has gone to City Council, who received it um, positively. And they were actually given the option to make a vote to put it on the ballot at their next meeting, which is going to be August 22nd. So it sounded from their response to the initial presentation introduction of the idea that they would be amenable to voting favorably for it. So we anticipate that the surcharge increase will be on the ballot for this November. So I would be, I myself am able to provide some educational information about the surcharge increase. I will be prepared at all of our upcoming tabling events to answer questions and to just have basic voter information about the CPA surcharge increase. It is to be determined still, and we would welcome if anyone has ideas about who will form a leadership team to manage a campaign for the CPA surcharge increase. So I would welcome any ideas if you have any. I am looking to be able to coordinate on the back end to help get started with that effort, and then to be able to step back and let the leadership team run with it. So if you have friends and friends who are advocates in the community, please, I welcome your thoughts and ideas about that. I also would welcome your suggestions about the message that we can communicate through the tabling effort, and any questions that you have about the CPA surcharge yourself that you'd like to be able to answer if people bring up questions.
Sure. Thank you so much, Roberta. Just so I understand the timing, the time frame
Mhm.
here, you mentioned that the city council meeting is scheduled for late August. I'm assuming that they approve the ballot. It's going to be available for a vote in November. So then we have basically what's left of August plus September, October into November on election day to mount a campaign in support of this.
Yes.
Okay. And in terms of, I understand there's some limitations from a city staff person perspective, if you don't mind sharing that as well, that way we can have a better understanding there.
So my role is to provide information, basic voter information, to understand what the CPA program is, what the surcharge proposal is, how it would impact voters. My role is not to tell people how to vote, and my role is not to fundraise or coordinate volunteers. So I will step back from that, from those. You as individuals, and actually myself, well, I'm not a Somerville resident, so I don't feel that it would be appropriate. If I was a Somerville resident, I could in my own off time commit my off time to doing campaign activities, and you all as Somerville residents can do as you like as individuals. you're not representing the committee in, if you were to engage in the campaign, you would be doing that as individuals, not as committee members. So it's important to keep a separate understanding of our role as the Community Preservation Act program in the city versus the role of advocating for the ballot initiative.
Thank you very much, Roberta. And I think those distinctions are important as well as the timeframes because it seems like, assuming that the city council approves this measure, we'll be able to have a little bit of time, but it's going to be a pretty concentrated effort. Should the committee members or anyone they know be interested in mounting a campaign and support? So I think this is really helpful.
And it's certainly, I wouldn't expect in this short time for any one individual to like mount a campaign on a large scale. I would expect that a core team could work together. And my experience having actually run the campaign in Medford was that a very, very small grassroots effort was able to lead a successful campaign because the program sold itself. Just giving the information to as many people as we could reach was persuasive enough that it didn't require a extensive campaign.
So Robert, so did Medford recently do this, an increase?
We did not do an increase. We voted in 2015 to adopt CPA.
Oh, okay.
Well, it seems like, we've talked about how we're gonna coordinate the tabling or the outreach that we do with the recruitment efforts to dovetail them, that this would just be like maybe another thing,
Yeah.
Have at the table, an important one, right? It'd be a lot going on at the table. But it seems, like I said, important. And they're right at the same time too.
Yeah.
To your point also, about the timeline, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sorry I missed the last meeting. I was busy, sorry about that. But the whole idea behind this proposal kind of sprung up last meeting, right? I'm just curious because it's kind of a short window to get all this stuff together for the election that's coming up. Is there
It's
a
a
way to maybe push it off to the next election? I know that's like, not the best idea, but at least we'll be able to think about it a little bit.
I will actually share with you what was shared with the city council regarding why now. I will share this screen momentarily. So this was not actually discussed at a previous CPC meeting. This proposal came to the surface after the last CPC meeting, which is why I spoke with each of you individually to give you a heads up that it was going to city council, because I didn't want for you to learn about it after they did. So I'm just going to share the screen and give the reasoning of why now. So why now? Because it doesn't appear that the real estate transfer fee that the city has been requesting of the state legislature is likely to pass in this legislative season. So the surcharge increase is a tool that's already at the city's disposal, that the state legislature has already given the city to be able to raise additional revenue for affordable housing and the other program areas without requiring an active state legislature to be able to raise that. So it doesn't appear that other avenues to address these needs are going to pass at the state level at this time. Slower development means less revenue projected from other sources. And after the city budget was adopted last month, it was clear that the revenue growth is slowing down, which means that the CPA budget growth is slowing down, well, as we could see from the eligibility determination forms that we received. The cost increases of the individual projects are going up, and the range of projects is also expanding. So the need for funding is getting more while the revenue is softening. And finally, because the presidential election cycle ensures the highest level of voter participation. So that's also a benefit to doing it this year rather than waiting until next year.
Yeah, well, there it is right there. At least whoever wrote that's not avoiding that issue. Which, I mean, maybe this is me as a resident. Doesn't really have anything to do with the board, but to kind of spring up a ballot initiative, which you already said kind of yourself, it sells itself. If it gets on the ballot, which I know it will, so maybe this is all a moot point anyway. If it gets on the ballot, it's going to pass. Who's going to vote against community preservation? I love community preservation myself. It's just now we have all these people coming into the city, moving in for a year or two, and then leaving, and now I gotta pay more money out of my pocket. It just seems very rushed is all.
You, Joe. I really appreciate your comments. I think they highlight, some of the other considerations that we should be keeping in mind as well. So I definitely appreciate it. Roberta, in terms of the city council meeting, I guess some of us, if we wanted to, we could attend in a private capacity. However, is there any value or benefit to attend as a committee member or as a designated committee member, or not at this time?
That's a very good question, and I haven't anticipated an answer to the question of whether it's probably in your private capacity, you can mention that you are a member of the Community Preservation Committee, but you're not going to city council representing the Community Preservation Committee in this.
But it does, I'm sorry to interrupt, it does beg the question though, that you'd think that someone should be saying, here's a demonstrated need, or who is speaking to the demonstrated need besides, that's more qualified to speak to it than us regarding, the demand for these funds.
Stakeholders.
I would guess, sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Brian.
I would guess maybe some frequent applicants and recipients of these funds, thinking about Somerville housing. I believe there have been over the years multiple grants to like the land trust or other frequent flyers where this represents a standard repeatable source of funds. I would think they would be very qualified.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking more in the context of just the straight facts, X number of years, this is the amount of money that has been requested of it, and this is how much we could fund. And this following year, this is how much was requested and how much, but like kind of, some document that shows, a consistent shortfall between, what's requested and what we have. Is that something that the council will have before them as they consider this?
So the council did see the entire presentation, so I will pull that back up again. It's not an easy question to answer of what the shortfall is each year, because as you've experienced in the last couple of years, when the initial requests are more than the funds available, the applicants and the committee have found different ways of balancing the budget so that you meet the demand.
Right.
Because
we make it work.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why I was thinking that you would think that they would want to see the less filtered view.
Right.
I don't know if and that's what I was wondering is how are they getting that perspective?
So let me just share again. That is one bit of math that I have not attempted to represent in any of the information that I've gathered about, providing information to date. But the, what we have pointed out is like an easier number that we've pulled out of the history of the program. That's all included in the annual community preservation plan that we prepared a couple of months ago. That annual community preservation plan identifies all of the numbers or all of the projects that have been funded to date. So $24 million in local revenue that the CPA has generated since 2014 has brought $7 million in state matching funds and leveraged $300 million in funding from other sources. And there is more information I need to shrink. So this just provides, this is all repeating some of the summary that's in the beginning of the plan document that we prepared.
Yeah, I mean, and well, maybe this is going to not be a problem, with, the city council, and they will, not be, there won't be a big debate over whether it should be, I forget what you called it, not a referendum, whatever. I would think that if you were trying to sell it to the public, that the other side of that coin, what more could we have done, if we had had more money, what was left on the table, would to me be,
So
would be a compelling, argument.
Yeah. What projects we could have saved money on had we been able to complete them in one phase instead of spreading over several years. So I'm also sharing relevant information. How will this impact the property taxpayers? So there's an estimate of the impact to property taxpayers who are owner-occupied condos. The average owner-occupied condo would see an increase of about $38 per year, and the average owner-occupied single family would see an increase of about $93 per year. So that's how this proposal would the actual cost that the proposal would be for individual property taxpayers.
That's very helpful background information, Roberta. Wanted to see if any other committee members have any other thoughts or any comments for Roberta. So in terms of our ideas or any thoughts, Roberta, what's the best way to communicate them between now till August, keeping in mind that we don't have an August meeting? Do you think that it's worth it to directly communicate with you, or what's the mode of communication that's preferred here?
Yes, please just communicate directly with me.
Great.
That's always the best.
Great. So I think we could spend a little bit more time thinking about possibilities around this ballot question and really helping support it.
Thanks.
Great. So I'm looking at the agenda again. I think the last item that we have on the agenda is the public outreach update. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the last subcommittee meeting, so I'm going to defer to Laura, Roberta to provide an update. I would love to hear, and I'm sure the committee members would also love to hear what was discussed last meeting.
So I'll just go ahead and provide an update because I'm actually looking for committee input on our engagement in the upcoming months. So I did include in the meeting packet, which I hope you will go back and review. Actually, I will bring it back open, and I need to reopen my meeting packet. My apologies. Meeting packet. So the summer outreach schedule, we have several upcoming events, which I'd like to bring to your attention again and ask if there are committee members who can attend any of these events with me. As you astutely pointed out, we have a lot of things to talk about at our table. So it will be very helpful if there are multiple people available to represent the CPC at our tables. So I have on the screen again our summer outreach schedule. And so please let me know if you're available for any of these dates. And then I wanted to share with you some draft materials that I've been putting together. So given the fact that we have 2 open seats right now for general public members, and we're going to be losing Jahan next year, and so the Conservation Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning Board all have open seats that will hopefully be filled by people who will enthusiastically also serve on the CPC. And so I am trying to use this tabling season this summer to share recruitment with the community and invite people to apply for boards and committees. And my thinking is that because we'll be going out and talking with general members of the public, they might be interested in anything. So not only the CPA related activities. So I've been doing some research to find out what are all of the board and committee openings across all of the city boards and committees, and put together some engagement materials to invite people to think about what issues they might want to serve on a board and committee for. So we have, I don't know if you can see, I'm not sure if I'm sharing the whole screen with both of my activities or only, okay, I'm going to
We're only
stop
seeing
sharing.
the CPC outreach calendar, right?
Oh, okay, that's why. Okay, so I stopped sharing, and I'm gonna start sharing again and show the engagement activities. So I can show the screen, share. All right. So we have a flyer. Now I need to shrink it so you can see it. So we have a flyer that this is just a paper-sized flyer that invites people to think about joining a board or committee. And then we have a poster that'll be a large size poster where we'll invite people to mark. I ordered some special markers to invite people to put a dot in any of the boxes that represent issues that they care about. So this is going to be our recruitment activity, and the flyer invites people to submit and their contact information on an interest form, so that then we can reach out to them and send them the application for the appropriate committee that they're interested in. So this is one activity. My question for you is whether you all would prefer to just have this one activity, or if we should also continue using the poster that we've had the last couple of years, inviting people to split $3 million between the program areas.
I think between now and November, we don't have space and time for the dots, because we also, in addition to this, want to have information about the ballot question.
That is true.
And I think that's plenty, right there, actually, and they're both, they're engaged in, we need to bring people in, they're engaging discussions to have, they're very, timely, right? Both things are, so I think that's plenty to talk about, actually.
Thank you. Yeah.
Laura, I agree with that. Roberta, question it. Do we have, I think might have asked this last year as well. Do we have any budget to print new boards, potentially with images of CPC funded projects? I think that could be a really useful tool as we not only just do our regular tabling, but also kind of expand it as a general selling CPC for this ballot initiative potentially.
That is one disadvantage to switching from the board that we used last year to this, is that the board that we used last year with all of your brilliant input included pictures of projects that we funded previously, and those generated a lot of conversation. So at this table, we will have our annual report in a printed book. And maybe I can make a poster to have flat on the table that has more pictures, or maybe we could create something that stands up. I could think about that. We do have from many years ago a banner for our for the CPC that was used at tabling before the pandemic. So it has some of our older significant projects, and it's a lovely banner. So I could reuse that. I like the idea of designing a new banner, but with all of these things that I've been trying to gear up for, I haven't had the time to work on developing a new banner. So yeah, I agree. It is useful to have pictures that we can point to. The report actually now has a cover that it has the I'm going to bring it, that has all of the projects. So that might be something, if we have that physical report on the table, maybe even 2 copies of it, maybe that's what we can point to. Plans and reports.
Didn't we have a loose leaf book with some pictures too of projects, right?
We
A notebook?
did. Yes, we do. And so that it needs to be that needs to be updated,
Mhm.
but this is the cover for the plan. So this essentially is like the includes a lot of the projects that were across the top of our poster that we used in the last couple of years.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's effective.
It would be nice if we had like a version that was like annotated, which kind of said where the picture was.
That's what the loose leaf binder that Laura mentioned would accomplish. So that's a good point. I will put that on my to-do list for next week to work on updating that binder and making sure that there are captions on all of the pages.
It also could be done as just like a quiz thing. Can you name these?
That's true. How many of these can you name? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, that actually might be kind of a fun activity.
Yeah.
This isn't everything, but it covers a lot. So thank you. That was really helpful input on the tabling and outreach. So I hope that some of you may be able to fill your names into additional dates on the schedule. And I did want to follow up on the social meeting. Thank you to everybody who filled out the form for the social meeting. The 2 dates that emerged as the best possible dates would be August 8 or August 12. So among everyone who is here this evening, I wanted to ask if you have a preference between August 8 and August 12.
8 for me.
Yeah, I think the 12th is on my no list, as I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
no preference on my side. The dates
Okay.
will work.
So we'll make it August 8 and I will follow up with a selection of where to meet. If you have any strong feelings, reach out to me with that. I will take that into account, but a few of you've given me some ideas.
Great. Roberta, I just want to thank you for organizing this. I know getting this group together with busy schedules and obligations is not an easy task. So between the poll and the reminders that you've sent, I think that it's been great to keep us on task here. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Great. So I wanted to see if for the good of the meeting, if anyone has any comments, any off agenda items that they want to mention for this evening.
I have a quick question because I have a Conservation Commission meeting shortly. When does my term expire? When do I have to start thinking about, because I think this is my second.
I don't remember offhand, in the meeting packet for last month was the schedule that has all of the, okay, thank
So I
you.
can, because I want to check and see whether I need to start beating the bushes on the Conservation Commission.
Yeah,
Great.
it's not this year, but it might be coming up.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They're 2-year terms, right?
3-year terms.
Great.
So it's 2 3-year, so it's 6 years total then.
Yes.
Okay.
But I think because I served the second half of someone else's term, I think that counts as a term.
Yes.
And
So
So Eric, that might be the same for you. Because you stepped into an existing term.
Right, when Dick Bauer. Yeah.
And Jahan, are you a community member? Or are you an appointed? I can't remember.
I'm a planning board appointee, so
Got it.
that's why I'm coming to the end of my term. I plan on continuing to serve as a planning board member going forward, but I am term limited here, so
Mhm. Thank you.
you're welcome. Just wanted to see, thank you so much, David. Any other questions, comments for this meeting, for Roberta, for myself? Seeing none. So I'd like to invite a committee member to make a motion to adjourn this meeting, please.
I'll do it. Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Laura. Is there a second, please?
I can second that.
Thank you so much, John. Roberta, would you please call roll?
sure. Eric,
Yes.
Laura,
Yep.
David,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jahan,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and Joe.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Our next meeting is on Wednesday, September 25th, 2024. But before that, I hope to see everyone in person during our social meeting in August. And thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Good
and the
night.
August thing is dinner time, right?
Dinner
Like-
time. I'll give
Yeah.
the time when I send out an announcement.
Great. Sounds good. Thank
Sounds
you,
great.
Roberta.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.